Running over mountain, running over mountain, running over in me, goodness, running over goodness, running over your goodness, running over, flowing on the inside. I got a river flowing on the inside of me. Great God morning, blessings to you. Welcome. Thank you for joining me for this session of Journey Through the Scriptures. Wonderful to have you tuning in with me this morning. If you can please do me a favor and share. Appreciate it so very much. Bear with me one moment as I endeavor to share this out. I got a river flowing on the inside. Thank you once again for tuning in with me. Whoa. Okay, got it. All right, excuse me for just one moment. I'll be right back. River's raging. Sorry, I forgot my glasses. I needed my glasses, or we were going to have a problem. All right, great God morning, blessings, and welcome. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining in with me for another session of Journey Through the Scriptures. Do me a favor, if you would, please share this. Appreciate it so much as you do. Even if you're watching this by replay, help me to share this out, spread it, share the love, the information, share the journey. If this is your first time tuning in and you're not familiar with who I am Raquel R. Pender. I welcome you. Appreciate you joining me this morning for Journey Through the Scriptures. I'm on Wednesday through Saturday at this very same time, 10 a.m. Eastern. And so you can join me during those times as we take this journey today. We will be in Exodus chapter 16. Am I right? Nope, I'm wrong. Sorry. We're in Exodus chapter 17. I even have it open. I'm not sure how I read that incorrectly, but I have it open to it. We're in Exodus chapter 17. Again, I appreciate you joining me. Thank you for sharing and spreading this out. I'm just getting this situated, but it's going to be locked down in a moment. We're picking up where we left off. The children of Israel, they have left Egypt, but now they're journeying through what we know as the wilderness, and we often refer to it as their wilderness experience, right? And we can, at times within our own lives, relate to and begin to identify different time periods in our lives to be that of a wilderness experience ourselves, as we transition from where we were, which was our own issues, our own struggles, away from and out of the path and the will of God for our lives as we journey in to discover, as we receive, come into the knowledge, the light of God, to know what is his will. And as we discover the will of God for our lives, as we receive his spirit, receive and accept his son, the dying of his son, the shedding of his blood, and all of those wonderful things, then of course the transition begins from the life we knew before having known him, before having received him, into a life of knowing him and what it means to know him, becoming sons and daughters. So within the in between, I guess, or the journey of becoming, as we would call it, great God morning and blessings to you, Minister Chantrell. Blessings, blessings. We would often consider that our wilderness moments, those wilderness moments, because of the things that we endure, the things that we experience, and at times it is quite a journey. The children of Israel, they spent 40 years on that journey. Now, we're going to see as this goes on and we understand this about their journey, it did not have to take as long as it did. But there were some things that about them that was going on in their lives that resulted in it taking the length of time that it did. It did not have to take, it could have been days, but it was extended much longer than it needed to, unfortunately. But at the same time, we recognize that our journey, the journey to the promises of God in our lives, the things that we want to accomplish, that we hope to accomplish, that we strive to accomplish. For some, the journey is not long; it's pretty quick. Or at least so it seems from the outside looking in. And for others, it can stretch for quite some time, with a lot of ups and downs, a lot of struggles, some failures, some successes along the way, some oopsies and different things of that nature. It's the journey to that. And then of course, once we have accomplished it, once we have succeeded in what we have set out to do, that's when we begin to say, I have reached that place, of accomplishing what it is we set out for, and saying the promise. We have reached the promise. So it is reachable, it is attainable, but the journey at times would make it seem so far, so long, so out of reach, so forth and so on. But we know that it most certainly is reachable. The children of Israel, it took them a long time to reach the land of promise, that land flowing with milk and honey. It doesn't have to take us that long, but the things that are within us that he has to pour out of us, that the renewing of the mind, the transforming of our thinking, of our actions, of our attitudes, and different things of that nature. All of those things are things that he deals with in the wilderness. So we're not going to go too much into that today. We're going to jump into Exodus chapter 17 to see where they are now in this journey, where they are now. They have not long left Egypt. We know that they have not long left Egypt, but we want to see where they are in this journey, what it is that they're experiencing. And right now in chapter 17, they're faced with another challenge. All right. They're faced with another challenge that has them once again, as Moses had said to them before, testing God. As they were grumbling and they were complaining. But this isn't the only challenge that we're going to see in chapter 17. They're going to be also faced with a battle that they're going to have to fight. They have a war that they're going to fight. And we're going to see about that and talk about that a little bit as well. Again, bear with me. Yes, I am. Praise be to God. Pray all is well. Here we go. Hold on. Okay. Praise God. Thank you, Jesus. I bless you, oh God. I bless you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord. There we go. Blessing his name, blessing his name, blessing his name. So in the book of Exodus chapter 17, what is happening is that they have journeyed. They're still in the wilderness. In 17, it refers to they had left the wilderness of sin, which is actually Sinai. Okay, they the short translation of it is sin, but is, and it's kind of odd to hear a place called sin, but it's referring to Sinai, and that's a part of the journey that they were taking, and they're in the wilderness. And according to the commandment of the Lord, they had encamped at Rephidim, but there was no water there, which is interesting that God would have them camp in a place where there's no water, right? So I'm sure he already knew that there was no water there. But again, we remember that in the previous chapters, one of the things that the Lord said, great God morning, blessings to you, Evangelist Johnson. One of the things that the Lord had said to them as he was giving them instructions was that he was going to test them, right? That they were going to be tested on this journey to see about, of course, about them following instructions that he had given unto them, but also their dependence on him. Right? Because one of the things that we saw and we continue to see with them, and we can probably begin to look even at ourselves, look even at our own lives and see where and begin to assess and evaluate that at times we ourselves have done the same thing. The grumbling and the complaining is what would happen. So here they are, they're in a place where the Lord told them to go, where he sent them, and he says, go here and camp here, camp in this place. But they get to this place and there's no water. Rephidim, there's no water there. So the people contended with Moses, right? So they contended with him. They're frustrated. They're upset about where they are, what's going on. Why are you bringing us in this place? So they start grumbling and complaining, whining. And as I'm going through the chapter and I'm reading this, I begin to hear it almost as children, babies, younger children, toddlers, if I can say it that way. And the attitude that they have, oftentimes they still have that baby personality of crying. They're not quite to the point to where they articulate and say and are able to vocalize and say that this is what's wrong, and that I'm hungry, or I'm hurting, or this I'm not feeling well. They're not to that point yet to where they're able to just go ahead and say that. And so what they do is they revert back to what they were doing as babies, where they just cry, and then it's left for you to try and figure out what it is that is going on with them, what's wrong with them in the midst of that. So they become very whiny. That's what I say anyway. Forgive me for those of you that it kind of hurts your ears a little bit, but it is. And so with the children of Israel, instead, rather than articulating and saying there's no water, we need water, they start mumbling and complaining. They start griping. They start whining. We don't have any water here. You brought us here. What do you want us to become dehydrated and die in the wilderness? Rather than just articulate, hey, Moses, we here in the wilderness, we're stopping here where the Lord said for us to stop, but there's no water here. So what are we going to do about water? So rather than doing that, and so of course it causes us to begin to look and reflect even within ourselves and on ourselves as to how, when we go to God about things that's going on in our own lives, situations that we're confronted with, how are we approaching him with it? Are we being whiny? Are we complaining, coming to him in a contentious way? Or are we coming to him with, the humility, of course, and coming to him as children, vocalizing, articulating to him what it is that's wrong and what it is that we have needed? Not in a place where, a lot of times we go in and we're just crying, we're distraught. And of course, when you're in this distress, you're doing more crying than talking. You're not necessarily vocalizing, and as babies, that's what the babies do. They're not necessarily vocalizing and saying, I'm hurting, or my tummy hurts, or I'm hungry, or even that I'm sleepy. They're not necessarily vocalizing. There's just a whole lot of whining. There's a whole lot of grumbling. There's a whole lot of things that just, and so with us, that's what's coming across. It's just a whole lot of complaining going on, rather than articulating and saying, there's no water. We're thirsty. All of us are here and we're camped in the place where the Lord has said for us to be but there is no water. And of course, we see here where Moses responds to them. He's listening to them complaining as usual. And then he turns and he responds to them. And I can feel that Moses is becoming a bit frustrated. He's becoming a bit impatient with what it is, their expressions and what they're saying and how they're acting. He's like, why do you contend with me? Why are you tempting the Lord? Why are you tempting the Lord? It's like interesting that he would say that. Why are you tempting the Lord, right? Why are you aggravating him? Why are you not trusting him? When we fail to have trust in God, when he gives us instructions, right? Do you think that God is going to send you in a direction or send us to a place and then he not have provision for us when we get there? Okay, so for them to become distraught because there's no water, okay, do you not trust that God that sent you to that place is going to make sure to provide? Do you not think that he knew that there was no water going to be there so that he would make provisions for there to be water? Right? Great God morning and blessings to you, my apostle and partner, Apostle Michael Bobian. Great God morning and blessings to you, sir. So, of course, you can begin to sense and feel the frustration that would come for Moses, as Moses being the leader and Moses seeing and remembering all that God has already done for the for the children of Israel, all the miracles, signs, and wonders that he has performed on their behalf just to get them out from where they are. Not to mention, just previously in a previous chapter, they encountered a situation where there was water there, but the water was bitter and they were unable to drink it. And what God did so that they can have water to quench their thirst. So he's already been making a way and demonstrating his ability to provide for them and take care of them. So being that we've already done that, think of it as a parent. Right? You've already been providing. You've already been taking care. Every time that they have need of something, every time that they wanted something, right? You were always there to answer to it, to give them water when they were thirsty, or juice when they were thirsty, or food when they were hungry. Whenever there was any discomfort or any pain or whichever, you were always there to do that. And so when the time comes and they're coming and it's in a frustrating way, they're in a nagging way, they're in a complaining way, it's like, haven't I done this for you before? Haven't I made sure that you had something to eat before? Haven't I made sure that there was something available for you to drink before? Haven't I been doing it for you? Okay, so why are you acting the way you're acting? Come on, I've witnessed some of you. I'm not a parent myself, I'm not biologically a parent myself, but I've witnessed some of you in action with some of your kids. So I know the response that comes forth. So considering your response for your children, consider your Heavenly Father's response when we come to him griping, complaining, okay, in a contentious way, rather than coming to him and just releasing what it is. Just telling him, okay, God, I followed your instructions. You said for me to do thus, and so you told for me to go here. You told me to leave where I was and to come over into this area where I don't know anybody. I don't know any of the systems, any of the programs or anything like that. Great God morning. Blessings to you, Barbara. Okay, so I don't know what to do and all this stuff. I came here in obedience to your instructions, but there's no water here for me to drink. There's no water here for me to drink. So what do I do? Wouldn't that have been easier? Wouldn't that have been better? Don't you think? I mean, just listening and thinking, y'all can talk back to me. It's all right. You can talk back to me. Okay. Wouldn't that have been better than the whining, the complaining, right? Wouldn't that have been much better rather than that? So Moses, of course, he understands that they're thirsty. I'm pretty sure he's thirsty too. But he knew and he trusted and believed that God, who gave the instructions for them to be there, would not bring them out of a place where they were in bondage and afflicted, right? And already in oppression. He would not bring them from there and say that he's taking them to a wealthy place, into a land of milk and honey, into the place of which he had promised to their forefathers. Moses, trusting God, knew that God was not going to let them dehydrate and die of dehydration. So we understand his frustration and we understand his response to them. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people complained against Moses and said, why is it you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us. That was one, and this is something that we're going to see commonly said with them, with challenges that they're facing. They're always bringing it to, why did you bring us here to die? And so dramatic, don't you think? So dramatic, right? You have brought us from Egypt where they were oppressed all of a sudden. And I say this often because we do this, and we have to begin to identify how we do this. We complain to God about a place, whether it be a ministry, whether it be our home, whether it be the neighborhood that we're in, the community that we're in, whether it be about the government, whichever it is, we complain to him about it. And when he starts making moves, taking steps for deliverance and to bring us out of that place, the things that he does causes a challenge to what we're accustomed to, because it's different, because it's new, because it requires us to come out of where we were, or whichever. It's not something that we're used to, accustomed to doing. It requires some changing even from us, right? Because for us to come out of where we were, even the place where we were, whether it's home, whether it's work, whether it's ministry, whichever, there's some things inside of us that has to change. And when that is prompted, all of a sudden, where we were, come on, be honest with yourself, where you were doesn't look so bad. When confronted with change, when confronted by what it's going to require for things to get better, when we're confronted with the challenges that you're faced so that things will be better, taking us out of our comfort zone, right? When challenged with that, all of a sudden, the discomfort that you were feeling for where you are is now looking more and more appealing. For the children of Israel, that's where they continuously it started looking more appealing when faced with the challenge of going forward, when faced with the challenge of striving towards the promise, striving to that place that they had been seeking for, longing for, praying for, crying about. When faced with the challenges that are there to get to that, the past, that oppression, those afflictions, all of that becomes more appealing. And we do that. And of course, we see it over and time again, over and over again with the children of Israel as they do the same thing. They begin to do the same thing. So you're not alone in doing it, but for us to recognize that it's what we do and then come away from it is important. That's what's important, is that we come away from that. We walk away from what it is, the complaining, the griping and all that stuff, and stop looking back at where you wanted to be delivered from it. And now he's taking steps, he's making moves to deliver you, and you keep on looking back and looking with longing. Okay, it's not so much that you're looking and you're telling the testimony of how God has brought you out, how he has delivered, how he's made a way, how he's moved. No. You're looking with longing to go back. No. You got to leave that behind. Stop the flashbacks, the memorizations and all of that stuff of the good times and all. No, you want it out. You want it to be delivered. You wanted something better. Okay, so now that he's giving you the moves and the steps to make, stop looking back. Look forward. Face the challenges. Confront what it is. Make the adjustments. It calls for a renewing of the mind. Okay, understood. It calls for a renewing of the mind. And that's one of the reasons why the children of Israel was wandering through the wilderness. That's many of the times, that's the reason why many of us are still wandering around and have not walked into that successful place. We have not seen the success that we are longing for, or even that has been promised, because the renewing in the wilderness time, the renewing of the mind that must take place, so that when you get into that place, you don't destroy it trying to bring into it what was in the past. So here they are. They were almost ready to stone him. Let me go back one verse in verse 3, where again it says, why is it you have brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst? You're going to kill us out here with thirst. That's where they're accusing him. Moses is not trying to kill you. If God was going to kill you, God is not trying to kill you. If he was going to kill you, he would have done it where you were. He would have allowed the enemy to take you out where you were. He would have allowed those Egyptians to destroy them with all of that they were oppressing, with overworking them. He would have allowed it to happen when the decree had gone out to kill all of the firstborn Hebrew children, when they were being birthed in that time, if God wanted to wipe him out, if he wanted to kill him, he had opportunity right there. When the Pharaoh had put out a decree, kill all the firstborn men. That right there would have done it. Right? So God wasn't trying to kill them. He wanted to take them into his promise. The same as what he's wanting to do. He's not trying to kill you, but he does need some changes to take place in you before you get to the land of promise, before he takes you into that place that he has promised you, the success with it, with even with your family, with relationships, with business, with ministry, and all of those things. But there's still that process. Apostle Michael Bobian often talks about the process from promise to fulfillment of promise. There's a process in between. Now, are we going to grumble and complain like they did and like we have done in the past? Are we going to grumble and complain, murmur and complain? Or are we going to trust God and go to him when we have a need? Not grumbling and complaining and being all dramatic. God, you're trying to kill me. You brought me out of my oppression to oppress me some more. No, we're not going to do that. No. We go to him because he says that we can come to him, right? We can come to him and convey to him, we need water. We need food. God, I'm thirsty. I'm following your plan. I'm following your instructions, but there's no water here. There's no lake here. There's no well here. There's no pump here. There's no store here that has any water. I need water. So Moses cried out to the Lord saying, what shall I do with this people? They are almost ready to stone me. Huh? These people, they're ready to kill me because they can't find, because there's no water here. So what would you have me to do? Look at how Moses approached God. He says to him, he says, what shall I do? Well, of course, he's referring now to these people. I'm sure we can all consider what he probably wanted to do, right? What he probably wanted to do. Being that they're coming at him and you feeling his frustration as they're murmuring, complaining. But the Lord said to Moses, he says, go before the people and take with you some of the elders of Israel. Also take in your hand the rod. Remember the rod that the Lord had used with him when he first began to demonstrate before Pharaoh, and even as he was preparing him. So Moses still has this rod, and God is yet still using him with this rod. He tells him to take his rod with him. And with this rod, he says, which you will strike, and then water, there will be a river of water. Water's going to come out. He says, behold, I will stand before you there on the rock of Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, and the people may drink. God already had a provision. He had already had things situated for them. He already had things situated. All they had to do was trust him. He already had it worked out. He already knew what he was going to have Moses to do. He had been working miracles. So this is not an uncommon thing, right? When the miracle signs and wonders, when the favor of God, when the move of God becomes common to us, and perhaps that is part of the struggle with us, is because we have not identified, we have not acknowledged the hand of God in our lives to this point. And so we're not familiar with his move. We're not familiar with him making ways and providing, because we've overlooked a lot of things, right? Even our expectation of God moving is no longer what it used to be, or even what it should be. And so therefore, the grumbling and complaining, it persists each time. But for the children of Israel, they should have been accustomed to the move of God. They should have been accustomed to him moving in miraculous ways. It's not that long ago that he parted the Red Sea. You remember that? Not that long ago, just a few days ago, he parted the Red Sea for them. Just a few days ago, he had Moses to take a tree and put it in the water so that bitter water could become sweet water and they have something to drink. Just a few days ago, he had provided for them manna from heaven and quail so that they could have food to eat. So therefore, to grumble and complain to God, are you trying to kill us? Did you bring us out of Egypt so that you can kill us here in the wilderness? To make such a claim, to make such a statement to him, quite offensive in my opinion. But then that's just me. This is Raquel talking, right? But quite offensive. So I can understand his frustration. And even for us, our approach to God, in the things that we have need of, that we're needing him to do, we're needing him to make a way. If we come to him, and I really believe this, the manner in which we approach him will also have a determination, right, on the answer, on whether or not he gives the answer, whether or not we are successful, whether or not we get what it is that we're needing. Consider yourself once again as children. I often relate this because that's pretty much what it is. It's father and children, right? So then parents and children, we begin to look at ourselves and how we would feel, how we would respond. Our children, right, that we have been providing for, we've been making ways for, we've been opening doors for, over and over again, every time that we're able to, we have provided for them. And then, of course, how they come, when they come, the attitude in which they come determines for you whether or not you're going to how you're going to respond, whether or not you're going to give them what it is they're asking for, what it is that they're seeking. Does it not? Right? When your child comes to you and they're whining and they're complaining and they ain't acting right, their presentation to you about what's going on, right? You determine you don't like the way that their approach, you leave them with it. Come on, don't try to fake it, because I've seen some of you in action. Okay. All right. So you, depending on how they approach you, it will determine your response and even how quickly or how slowly you respond. Sometimes because you want them to catch themselves, because sometimes y'all take a look and be like, I know you're going to discover who you are and who you're talking to real quick. Come to me right. Come with the right attitude. Apostle often teaches on this as well. Presentation and attitude determines quite a lot. It determines whether or not you're going to get what you're asking for or not. Whether or not you're going to be receptive, whether or not you're going to be heard or not. Okay? And so as Moses did so in the sight of the elders and of Israel, so he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the contention of the children. Because of the contention of them, that's what he named the place for their contention. Wow. Okay. And because they tempted the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? So in essence, what he's saying is that they were questioning whether or not God was with them, whether or not God could provide for them, whether or not God would do for them. And this is where we test God. We call into question, by calling into question whether or not he can provide, whether or not he will provide, whether or not he will open the door, whether or not he will make a way, whether or not he will heal. We're testing him. That's what Moses is saying to them. Because you question whether or not the Lord is among us or not. So then we move on. And here was the other conflict that they faced in this chapter. I'm almost done. Wow. Praise God. Here's the other conflict that they faced. So now they've dealt with the water situation. And yet again, God proves himself. Okay. God begins to prove himself. Once again, he proved himself by providing water. He had Moses strike the rock. Moses, strike that rock. And Moses strike the rock and water comes out just like the Lord told him it was going to happen. It was going to happen. So now they're faced with another challenge. The Amaleks. Help me say this. Help me, Lord. Okay. The Amaleks, they came and fought with Israel while they were there in Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, so here's the strategy. We keep asking him to prove himself to us, even though he keeps showing us his power. Exactly. Thank you, Shanice. We keep on asking him to do this, and he does it over and over again. But here's the problem with it, is that we don't even acknowledge. We fail to acknowledge that he has. And so because we fail to acknowledge it, we keep finding ourselves in a place where we're over and over again asking God, prove yourself, prove yourself. He's looking at us like, but I have. I keep doing it. I keep on answering you. I keep on making a way for you. I keep on providing. How many times do I have to prove myself to you before you will believe? Thank you for that, Shanice. So Amalek, they came to fight against the Israelites while they're there in the place that God has sent them to. But God always makes a way for them, and he also fights for them. One of the promises that we remember that God made unto Abram, their father, right, was that their enemies would be his enemies. So he was going to fight any enemy that rises up against them. And so we see God doing it here, even here now with the Amaleks. Okay, so Moses gave instructions to Joshua. You know, Joshua is a warrior, right? So he gives instructions to Joshua and he says, choose us some men and go out and fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of a hill. The importance of leadership. Whether you want to acknowledge them, whether you favor them or not, there's an importance and there's a reason why God has leadership. It does not, yet again, it does not take away from the relationship that God has with with us individually. He always intended and always wanted to have individual, private relationship with all of his children. Yet still he has leaders over them. Okay, and here it is. Here's what this leader is doing. This leader says to his general that he told to select some men that they can fight. Now, what he could have done was, he says, go and select the men and y'all go out and fight while I stay back and I just watch over the people. No, that's not what he says. He says, go and select the men to go out and fight against this army. He says, and while you're out there fighting, here's what I'm doing. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of a hill with the rod of God in my hand. His hand was going to be stretched out. And in one hand, he was going to have the rod of God in his hand. So Joshua did as Moses said to him, and they fought. They fought Amalek, and Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up on top of the hill. Here's what happened. So it was when Moses held up his hand with the rod in his hand, as Moses is holding it up, they are winning that battle. Why? He is interceding so that they can win. That leader is interceding so that you can win and you can fight and win and be successful in it. So as long as his hands were stretched up and his hands is lifted towards God, he's interceding for them on their behalf as they're down there fighting the battle. As long as his hands was lifted up, they were winning. But here's what began to happen. He grew weary. Leaders do become weary. And this is the reason why we have to intercede and pray for them. They do become weary, holding up their hands, stretching out and interceding. It becomes to wear on spiritually, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, physically. Okay. It begins to drain. They're still in the flesh. It's still in a fleshly body. Of course, they're going to begin to feel it. So Moses, let me read that part again. And so it was when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Okay, so as long as his hands are lifted up and he's able to intercede and he has the strength to intercede, they are winning in battle against their enemies, against their adversaries, against anything and everything that came up against them. They were able to fight. But the moment the leader got weak, okay, and weakness, we can get that out of our head too. Weakness doesn't always mean that they're sinning or doing anything wrong. He got weary. His hands started to come down. And his hand starts to come down and their adversary started to win. But Moses' hands became heavy. So they took a stone, and this is where it helps when you intercede and you're praying for your leader, you're holding up their hands. You're helping them to hold up their hands so that they can have the strength to continue to intercede, to continue to pray so that you can continue to win. So you can continue to have success. If that leader is interceding and praying for you, and you know that being connected to that leader is a benefit, you can see the blessing of the Lord, your relationship with God and everything that is happening. You want to hold up that leader and make sure they stay strong in the Lord and in the power of his might in their life. Because as long as God is moving through that leader, moving in that leader, you're going to prevail. It's not to say you're not going to have tests. It's not going to say you're not going to have trials. It's not going to say you're not going to have to fight battles. It's not to say any of that won't come. They will come. But here's the thing. You have someone interceding and praying with you. They were down there fighting, but they weren't fighting alone. Moses was fighting with them. As he was in the spirit, he was praying for their success. So, but Moses' hands became heavy. So what they did was they took stone and put it under him and sat on him. They sat there with him, and Aaron and Hur supported his hands. So he had support, someone to hold it up so it wouldn't come down. They supported his hand, one on one side and one on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun, so that Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. He says that in his word. That's right. They were able to defeat their enemies. They were able to defeat them. Why? Why? They had help. They weren't fighting in their own strength. They were fighting in the strength of God. We saw it as this being played out here. And many of you are experiencing it. You're experiencing it when you go with God, when you know that you have intercession, that you have someone that's backing you up, when that leader is strong, right? When that leader is in the presence of God, he is strong. He's interceding, he or she. You're successful. You're winning. They're interceding and they're warring with you. They're fighting with you. They may not be physically in the trenches, but spiritually, because they're interceding, they're battling in that fight with you on your behalf, interceding and praying that you're successful with your business, interceding and praying that your marriage, your relationships are successful and in the will of God. All of these things so that you can win in life. Why? Because it is God's will for us to win, for us to prosper, to have success in every area of our lives. When we are in sync, when we're in tone, where we are in the will of God, and it is the will of God for us to support leadership. You know, for a time there, and sometimes it still seems like it now, that there's an attack against leadership where people find reasons to tear down leaders. Leaders too need to be held up. They need to be built up. They need to be strengthened. Because while they're fighting, we see it with Moses. What was happening? It wasn't that he was unwilling to go into battle with them. It wasn't that he was unwilling to intercede for them. It was not that he was unwilling to hold his hands up. He was very willing. He told him what he was going to do, and he made every effort to do that. But what happened? While doing it, he became weary. His hands became heavy with the weight of what he was carrying, with the weight of what that leader has to carry in prayer, not just for himself, but for the people that he's carrying as well. It becomes heavy. Intercede. Stand in the trenches. Intercede. Lift them up. Don't slack off on it, because you don't want them to slack off. What would happen? Have you not noticed? Have you not noticed? If you pay attention, whenever the leader gets hit, the whole body is affected. When the leader gets hit, when the leader is under attack in any way, the whole body gets affected one way or another. I'm going to tell you, that's one of the things that I've experienced in my life. No matter which leadership I was under, that leader was connected to God. Whenever that leader was under attack, when they were experiencing something, I started to experience. It trickled on down. Okay, time to pray. So when we intercede and we lift up the leader in prayer, that leader is able to do what they need to do to keep us covered, keep us strengthened, so that we can continue to fight and win. So that they continue to fight and win. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this for the memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua. So he says, write these moments down. See how important it is for us to remember and to celebrate, commemorate the things, the victories. That's why we can't take for granted. We can't overlook the things that God does, no matter how little it may seem. Write it down. Give that as a testimony. Give it as a testimony to your children. Even in ministry, give it as a testimony for them to see, to continue to know to keep their faith, to know what God has done and what he will continue to do. So he says to them, he says, write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called its name, the Lord is my banner. The Lord is my banner. For he said, because the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. And we remember this. I said this just a few moments ago. One of the promises that God made unto Abraham, he says that your enemies will be my enemies. I will curse them that curse you. I will fight against them that fight against you. So here we see where God is saying, and where Moses has spoken it, and the conclusion of chapter 17. He says that the Lord was going to war against Amalek. God himself said unto Moses that he was going to wipe them, wipe even the remembrance of them from under heaven. He would write even the memory of them from under heaven, and the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation. He will always have war with them. So anytime they rise up, God was going to fight that battle so that they can win. And he will do the same thing in the lives of his children, even today. You can see and you can witness the hand of the Lord moving on your behalf in your life. When we are in the will of God, when we're doing things according to his will and his way, we're following the path that he has for us. As he gave that promise unto Abraham, what did he say that Abraham was to do? If he follows his statutes, if he follows all the instructions that God has given for him to do, this is what will happen. It's the promise, the fulfillment of the promise in our lives. It can be fulfilled in our lives as we align ourselves to do his will. Many of us are still in the wilderness because we're still trying to decide whether or not we're going to do his will. We half stepping, straddling the fence, all those things that we do. Still doing it. But when we come on in, completely and totally, complete and total surrenderance unto the Lord. Even if you have not, up until this point, given your life to him, say, okay, I'm ready. The promise that God gave unto Abraham becomes the promise even on your life, your enemies. And you don't have to listen, and he doesn't even require that you fight them. What does he say? Be still, and the Lord will fight your battles for you. He tells us not to try and wrestle against flesh and blood, because our war is not against flesh and blood. It's against principalities, spiritual wickedness in the realm of the spirit. So we're not dealing with flesh and blood. We're dealing with spirits that opposes us over and over again, time and time again. And it's the reason why we're mindful of even that. But yet we know this, in whatever battle, whatever situation, whatever challenge that we're faced, whatever challenge that we're confronted with, right? He is there to fight on our behalf, to fight along with us. So we saw two things here that took place in chapter 17 of the book of Exodus. The trust in God, trusting in God to provide, and trusting in God to fight. Also in leadership, the importance, the significance, the importance of lifting up leaders and what they do for us. And if you're a leader, it helps you to see what you should be doing. Help us to identify our role, okay? Our role and the role that we play in the lives of those that God has placed for us to cover and to lead. And certainly the trust must be there. The trust in the leader, that the leader is hearing the voice of God, following through with the instructions of God. All of that is important. Most importantly is the trust in God, in his ability to provide, his ability to make a way, his ability to continue to do what he has been doing, so that when we go to him, it's not with doubt in our heart. I believe a lot of times, the way we go to him is because we don't believe. And so that's why we're so distraught. We're in such a state That when we come to him, it's more with murmur and complaining because the faith has not been built up. It's not where it should be, so that we can come to him. He says, come boldly before my throne. Come boldly before me and make your request known. Present your petition. If you're going into a courtroom, let's look at it this way. And then let me close up after that. Look at it this way. If you're going into the courtroom, let's look at it. And we're in the courtroom of heaven. You can't walk into the courtroom of heaven insecure. Even in the natural realm, you don't want to walk in there insecure and feeling intimidated, lacking confidence. That's basically what it is when we're coming to God with just griping and complaining and all this stuff. We have no confidence in him. But when we come to him with confidence, we're able to relate to him. This is what's going on. And it's not in a complaining way, and it's not a contentious way. Lord, this is what's happening. And this is how I need help. I need guidance. I need direction. I need someone to help me to fight. I learned a long time ago. I used to be that way. That's why I can talk about it. I would go to God and I'm crying. I can't even get out what the situation is, what the problem is. I can't even get it out because I'm crying. And in those moments when I was doing that, the thing that I realized, I have no strategy. There's no prayer strategy going on. Okay? I'm not articulating to him. I'm just crying. And then I'm also not seeing any results because I have nothing to come to him with. I have no word. I have no confidence. And I had no faith. Getting in his word, having a relationship, communicating with him, and building confidence in my relationship with him to come to him, just as he says, and in the authority that he has given unto us. Then when I go to him with the word. I go to him with what the situation is. This is what the situation is, and this is what your word says. And I believe, God, and I'm letting him know, Lord, and I believe that you will, according to your word, make this way, open this door, tear down, move this mountain, move my enemies from before me, heal this sickness, take away this headache, take away this pain confidently. Notice I said confidence and not arrogance. Confidently. My presentation to God. I came to him in faith, with confidence, in the authority in which he has given, and he responds. And he responds. Sounds like I have company at the door, y'all. So I'm going to have to wrap this up. And he responds. He responds according to our faith. He responds according to our faith. Always. So when we come to God, we go to God in faith. The children of Israel, they were often testing him because they lacked faith and they lacked confidence. So it is for us to have faith and for us to have confidence in God and in his word. I am so sorry. I have to take this call at my door. So I'm going to go for now. You all be blessed. Build your confidence in his word and in his promises to you. God bless you. You all have an awesome, wonderful, phenomenal day. Join Apostle Michael Bobian this afternoon at 2:30 for Midday Inspiration. Please follow him and join in with him there. You can join me for prayer at 12 noon today on our conference line. Please join us if you're a prayer warrior and intercessor. Connect with us. Connect your faith with us as we intercede and pray one for another, even as we're believing God for a move in this nation. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.